Hi, this is Jeffrey Smith, and we are inside of Market Recon, and you're probably wondering, what is this diagram on your screen? Back in 2007, I cognized something called competitive keyword thresholds, and what this allows you to do is determine very quickly and easily where keywords fit into your site architecture. And here's what we found. Now, keywords that typically have more than 1 million competing pages are ideal silos. And if you recall, the way to find that out is to enter a phrase in quotation marks in Google. And that really means just your main topic. So it really does deserve its own topic, its own site segment. And then you're going to need to build out categories and supporting articles underneath it. So the categories we typically found were keywords that were in the range of 300,000 competing pages up to 1 million search results. Now we found that the modifiers and mid-tail keywords were in between 50,000 to 300,000 competing pages. And the mid-tail means it's not the head, the root phrase like insurance. Categories are something like auto insurance, which would be market defining. A modifier might be cheap auto insurance quote. And so that's more along the lines of a mid-tail phrase. And then we found that things that are 50,000 competing pages or less are typically your long-tail keywords. Like, where do I find cheap auto insurance, which is a long tail, which is comprised of 3 or more words. And so by using that format, it became very clear on how we could structure our content based upon what the competing page thresholds were for the phrases that we were going to integrate into site architecture. With this in mind, we found that things that were 50,000 competing pages or less, if you had a website that had established authority, was rather easy for you to simply create a blog post about this and rank for it. And now as your site gains more authority, meaning the more topical depth and breadth that it has, the more backlinks that you have, the more age that the site has, the more internal link structures that it has, and the more relevant the content, that baseline will raise. And so, for example, our site, SEO Design Solutions, since I was actually writing a fair amount of content, I think I wrote over 1,000 posts on SEO and had immense topical breadth across the board. And so as a result of that, that site ranked for everything as a result of just the way that it was structured. And so as an example, we were able to rank for keywords that were 4 million competing pages or more just by creating a blog post and publishing it. And within 15 minutes, instead of you having to fight your way to the top, what happens is once your site gains enough authority, Google starts to pay attention to you, and whatever you write, essentially, if you structure your content properly and you have established trust, well, then it just puts you at the top of the search results until other challengers have more authority or can displace you. So this chart is really just a way of saying, hey, by the way, if you're starting out, 50,000 competing pages or less is really where you want to start. You want to find keywords and phrases that are in that part of the conversation for whatever keyword that you're targeting, and then work your way up. You want to make sure that you establish that mid-tail modifier / categorical level, which is your 50,000 to 300,000 competing page range. And you also want to make sure that you've selected and categorized everything that are considered silos or main topics, and each one of those should either have its own page to start with and its own categories underneath it. And if you really want to create some topical breadth, you might have 2 to 3 categories underneath the silo term. And then for each of those categories, you might go 5, 10, 20, or 30 deep, depending upon the diversity of the content that you're putting in those what we call supporting articles. And they're supporting because they're at the base of the pyramid. And so this is really just a clear-cut way for you to understand where things go in the conversation when you're doing keyword research. And so we're going to go ahead and move into an actual drill. And then after that, I'm going to share with you some unique ways that you can use filters. Now, the tool that we're going to be using is SEMrush. And the reason we're using that is, yes, of course, you could use other keyword research tools. You could use the Google AdWords Keyword Planner. But personally, I think that's a little more skewed for selling pay-per-click. And the other thing to consider is that keyword research tools, as amazing as they are, I've seen things that look like they have lots of search volume in a tool, and you rank number 1 for it, and you simply don't get the traffic that it's claiming. So like anything, you need to use common sense. It's more important to create the topical depth so that instead of ranking for one variation, you rank for multiple variations, so that no matter how somebody types in a question or a query about whatever your topic is, you're the definitive subject matter expert. And so that's really what we're going for here. So let's go ahead and move into the keyword research.